It is 6 o'clock. It is Tuesday, March the 4th. I'll call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority March meeting. Ask everyone to please stand for prayer and then pledge of allegiance. Colonel Burney.
All right, y'all bow and let's
prayer for us.
prayer. Father, thank you for the evening. Thank you for the opportunity to serve our community. God, thank you for every person on this board for the time that they put in. God, thank you for the visitors and the community that's here tonight. So God, I pray for wisdom tonight. I pray that you would help us stay focused on what's really important. God, I pray that we do it all with kindness. And Father, we'd stay open to the options to work through some of the concerns that we have tonight. And God, I'm again grateful for the opportunity to serve our community. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Kuhn, roll call, please. Here.
Right.
Here.
Agino.
Here.
Mr. Ludwig.
Here.
Ms. Hall has a family emergency. So, General Lyford.
Here.
Colonel Burney.
Here.
I noticed, Colonel Burney, you're always behind General Lyford.
Can you believe that? I'll talk to you that later about that. He's always behind him in the military. I'd like to at least maybe move in front of him if you can make that happen.
Well, he's already been on the board longer than you have, so I mean, yeah, it's.
No, I bow to him.
All right. Mr. Kuhn, any public comments?
No, sir.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Earlier, you had received from Mr. Kuhn the January 2025 financials, as well as the February 4th Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes, as well as the February 20th, 2025 Keystone Heights Airport Authority special meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Correction on that February 20th special meeting, I remember specifically making both of the motions to the Clay County Economic Development Corporation and to AECOM because there was discussion whether they were going to be done together, and that's why I asked you. So I know I made the motions, but I don't remember who made the seconds. And we need to correct that before we do the record, I believe. Does anybody remember?
I think you gave it a second, didn't you?
It's
Little. I did the second.
Okay, you did the second on both of them or just one of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented with those corrections.
Second.
all right. Any other question, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to reports. Mr. Frame, ongoing project update.
Good evening, board and members of the public. Updates on 3 projects. On the West Side Service Road, we have a construction project ongoing to install some fence and an automated gate, some security lighting, and some infrastructure for future camera. The contractor has notice to proceed. They're procuring materials now. In fact, I expect next week they'll start to deliver some of the fence materials, the gate, and probably some equipment, maybe a skid steer. I think they'll actually start on-site construction in 2 to 3 weeks. And once they start, it's about a 30-day window. Related to that, but not being handled by the contractor, with the help of the chairman and the airport manager, Clay Electric is also preparing to run power from State Road 100 back to the gate location. So the Clay Electric infrastructure will be a total of 3 new utility poles, each with a street light. The last pole will terminate at or adjacent to the gate location. That's where we'll get power for the gate. And Clay Electric's also going to be installing a 400-watt floodlight fixture on the pole at the gate, which will provide the nighttime lighting for the gate location. So should have some action in a couple weeks on that. On the master plan project, we are near completion of the first section, which is the inventory section.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
pardon me, let me stop you. Just on the gate and on the existing fence, 100, are they going to leave that until all the new fence and the gate is installed? Okay, and then they'll take that down last?
They won't breach the perimeter until all the new fencing is installed.
Okay,
I'm good.
Well, will they take it down then, or will they take it down when Bradford County connects it?
They're
My
taking
bad.
it down at the end of our project.
yeah, they need to take it,
Okay.
because that's part of it.
Okay,
That's part of the project.
There'll be a ditch, it won't be accessible, the road won't be accessible until the connection is made, but because there's multiple entities contributing to the overall work, we've been doing it in stepwise fashion like this. Okay, on the master plan, as I mentioned, the inventory section is nearly complete. Our surveyor has started on the updates to the airport property map. There's not a lot of change in your property, but your previous airport property map was performed and documented to an old standard. So part of the task in the master plan is to bring the Exhibit A property map up to current FAA standards. Has a lot to do with where the information is placed on the document and how the boundaries, property boundaries are depicted with line weights and line styles. And then there's a table, if you will, that presents how land parcels were acquired and or conveyed to encompass your entire property. A part of that is also updating the title search. And I understand that the title search work is going to be done this
The
week.
report will be to you tomorrow.
Yeah, so there's been communication today between our sub who's doing the title search work and the surveyor. So the surveyor can receive those documents and update and report on anything that represents an encumbrance, et cetera.
And Bill, if it helps at all, the legal description that we used back in 2013
Yep.
in that title report is unchanged.
Perfect.
Same legal.
Yeah, yeah, the Exhibit A property map was always, I mean, you can spend a lot of money doing one of those for an airport that has complicated parcels and a lot of land transactions. You don't have that. It's kind of it's been a static land boundary. So, on the scale of this type of task, it's on the smaller side of effort, because it's just reformatting and of course, it's a new surveyor doing it this time, and I know her work. She does these for us often. She's rechecking everything, tracking meets and bounds, making sure there's closure on parcels and there's no anomalies or, breaches or overlaps that are outside of a reasonable standard. So the third thing I want to report on is at the special meeting, you authorized supplemental agreement number 29, which is a documented categorical exclusion for a 100-acre parcel down towards the end of runway 23. We have a kickoff meeting scheduled for that next week, which will involve airport staff, my environmental staff, and Crawford Powell. And I can just report that the first thing we're going to do, because it's critical to being a springtime activity, is acoustical monitoring for, I think it's 3 species of bats. We don't expect that you have these bats on your property, but they're being newly listed as threatened and endangered species. I can name 2, I can't remember the third, but this is if you're in the environmental world in Florida, this is a hot topic because we've been hearing bats were going to be added to the T&E list. And that's coming, so now the FAA is requiring us to do the acoustical monitoring. And I guess, they only make sounds in the spring, I really can't give you that part, but I've been told that if we don't get the acoustical monitors up in the right time window, the data is not reliable. So we'll be hanging some speakers in the woods. Any questions?
I just want to add one thing, going back to the gate for just a second. I know, and I appreciate I know you had inquired a little bit about the siren activation device, and I did inquire about that a little bit. And, with just people that's had experience with them, and they didn't get back very many positive reviews from them. It's great when it does all work, but And even one of the first negative comments that I found online was somebody that, that works in like gated communities all the time and finds that their codes, that the customer's code is expired. So literally gets on the phone, goes to YouTube, pulls up a siren and puts it up there and opens. So as far as the security thing, you know, it's like, it's, yeah. So, just to kind of give you some feedback on that. So,
So don't incorporate it.
Right.
Message received. Anybody else? Any questions?
What goes on the kickoff meeting?
We talk. Basically, we will recite the scope back and we'll do some coordination with Craig because we're going to have some people on site doing, on foot studies. And I think we have some data collection we'll need to get from Craig. For me, it's the introduction, like I've scoped it with our lead environmental person. This is the chance for the individual task managers, the person that's going to do the noise analysis, the bat survey. We're going to be doing a biological and an archaeological study, again, on foot studies. It's a chance to engage those staff and actually get them moving in the right direction. It is somewhat perfunctory. I'll just state that in my company, a task of any size requires a kickoff meeting. So,
And we did already meet with them before, and we talk about things that are local to our airport, like access to the gates, who to call in an emergency, stuff like that. So expectations, don't drive here, don't drive here.
anything else?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prang. Appreciate the update. Moving to our next agenda item, Mr. Taylor. Status of firm cease and desist demand, including the February 19th letter from new legal counsel for firm.
Yes, sir. The agenda item is the status of the firm cease and desist letter or demand. In response to the second cease and desist letter, firm did cease using the portion of the track that extends beyond its lease boundary and intrudes into the RPZ. As I think you all know, they have new counsel who noticed their appearance on the scene in an email from February 19. And I had an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with the two lawyers who I think will be handling the matter for firm at this law firm last Friday. And an upshot of that meeting was the email that we received from those attorneys later yesterday. I think the board members have seen it. In the Zoom meeting, they had expressed to me their belief that some mitigation options were available to the airport to address the safety hazard presented by the track's intrusion into the RPZ in a manner that should allow firm to continue to use the track. And therefore, firm would request that the board rescind, if that's the correct word, the cease and desist demand. And that email from yesterday does provide a proposed mitigation plan, I suppose one could call it, that might afford the opportunity for firm to continue to use the track on designated days and times, subject to some protections that firm's lawyers say the airport could implement itself, and that I can see might work. Mr. Kuhn took that email from firm counsel yesterday, forwarded it to Katura Clark at the FAA regional office in Atlanta, and we did this afternoon receive a response from Ms. Clark. I think the board members have that as well, which frankly, to me, trying to digest it as I could before this board meeting, is not as clear in its direction to the airport as maybe it could have been. And one thing it leaves unclear to me, prior to this communication from Ms. Clark, let me step back a moment. The best guidance we had been able to get from FAA expressed that the track intrusion needed to be eliminated as a threshold action by the airport that would be the gateway for then FAA addressing with us other issues that concern the firm lease. And Mr. Kirkland expressed that to Ms. Heinz at firm in an email back on February 18. And I think the board members have seen that email as well. And Mr. Kirkland's email was firmly rooted in the FAA's guidance to us, because it was clear in an email that Ms. Clark sent in January that the elimination of track intrusion was indeed a condition for the FAA even to consider further actions to resolve the entirety of the issues concerning firm's lease. So one could read the most recent email from today as implicitly stepping back from that. I'm not sure of that. One could also read it as still requiring removal of the track intrusion. But however one may read or interpret that email, what was in my mind when I addressed the board and the board directed me to send the first cease and desist letter, and then when it came back up again that firm was not complying, when the board directed me to send the second cease and desist letter, what was foremost in my mind, and I tried to express at the time, was there's an overarching issue of potential liability here. And as I said before, I recognize that a statistician could look at this situation, take the multiple years of experience we have of that track being used, in fact, within the RPZ zone, the RPZ, in the absence of any aircraft, motor vehicle collision during that time, which is the worst possible calamity I can foresee from the intrusion being where it is. Nevertheless, if it happened in a court of law, its statistical remoteness is not a defense. And any good plaintiff's personal injury lawyer who might have that case for an injured pilot or an injured driver or both, or even worse, a pilot or driver who had been killed in such a collision, would be trying to look for all the deep pockets it could find, and it would look beyond the obvious target of the firm and its principals who allowed this usage, but they would probably have the airport in its sights as well. And no lawyer could guarantee that that effort wouldn't be made. It may or may not be successful on its merits in court, but those would be claims which we could foresee being made and would have to be defended. And above that, there's perhaps even more overarching issue of, the board is the steward of the airport, and the airport's primary function is to run an airport safely. And having an intrusion like this into the RPZ, one could question if that's consistent with the board's stewardship. And if one were to read Ms. Clark's email, and I'm thankful for her providing this guidance, and I'm not being critical about it being perhaps subject to different readings, but even if this were read as giving us a green light, so to speak, from the FAA to proceed with a mitigation plan, to the extent that plan involves some continued usage of the track while there is the potential for an aircraft to be using that runway, no amount of FAA green lighting is going to be a defense either in a court of law. And I just think it puts the board in a difficult position. Firm expects a response to the proposal they've made. That's fair. And they're asking for a 36-day relaxation, if one wants to put it that way, of our insistence that the track, to the extent of the intrusion, not be used, with some protections that they say would eliminate even a risk of an aircraft motor vehicle collision. And if we're going to comply with their requests, then we would need to tell them so pretty soon, because one of the days they're looking to use the track is this coming Saturday, as I read their email
Today.
in the calendar.
It was today, too.
Well, today, but I think today's
Did they
gone
use it
and they
today?
didn't use it.
Okay.
So those are my concerns. And I don't really have a recommendation to make to. I think this whole situation puts a lot of pressure on the board. But that's where the board is.
So I read their, from their counsel, they do have these specific date windows. And then I refer to Ms. Clark's response. Even if we were to allow it, it says submit a special safety hazard mitigation plan. And of course, we know that the FAA, a big entity, works at the pace of a snail. So we can't, right there on number 2, I don't think even if we were to agree to expose ourselves, I think she's telling us we can't do anything without their approval after it. The other thing that's conflicting is in the very beginning, Mr. Coons submitted some mitigating factors, such as having a flag person out there on the end of the runway. And when an aircraft comes, they would red flag, I believe it would be red flag or stop the track.
Track monitors.
Let the plane land. Then, as their counsel also suggests, they suggest a displaced threshold of the runway, meaning that we shorten our runway length to move the RPZ down further. And then the FAA tells us you cannot alter the runway's design or limitations for a non-aeronautical activity.
Right.
So this is very hard to understand. The first, and let me just finish here real quick. The first conflict I can see is these dates are not going to get approved in time if we follow her requirements. Number 2 is going to eliminate that. The other thing that's kind of confusing here, it says, please show protective barriers, standing notice, including the actual draft, security features, example giving guards, whatever. So if we put barriers up, we're in fact adding something else in airplane. If we put up jersey barriers, I think that's what they're called, the concrete.
Could run into.
Now an airplane can not only have a risk of hitting a moving car, which is less of a target, now they can hit a concrete barrier.
Aren't there barriers out there now?
There's what?
Aren't there barriers out there now?
I think they're just plastic.
There are,
Might
but
be
they're
water-filled.
supposed to be removed as well.
That was one of the things I was asking Craig, is if they've removed those barriers as part of the cease and desist. Because they could stop operations on the runway if you got barriers. Just inside the RPZ, you still have something you don't need to have in the RPZ. Do we know if they've been removed? You said something about they had barrels now with sand on them, or?
Yeah, barrels on the track that are indicating not using the track, but the wall I think.
But they're not in the RPZ, they're outside of it to prevent you from coming
Okay, I
in.
thought they were in.
No.
So
But
there's
if-
nothing, there's no barriers in the RPZ,
Well, there's the wall that's at the very edge.
a wall.
The rails that keeps them on the track from going
So
off the
that's a
track.
problem too then, right?
Yeah.
So if you move
And
to
that's
accommodate
elevated
them,
above the existing grade.
now you're gonna move something out into the RPZ that's fixed and upright. Right now, it's outside of that to prevent you from getting in it.
But the rails are also already in the RPZ.
Right, but the idea was to prevent them from coming in. The other thing they talk about,
But you can't have any vertical development in RPZ, right?
well, that's what I'm saying, if you put Jersey barriers out there to prevent
No,
a
but
car
there
that's out
already
of
are
control.
with the rails.
Well, they're metal, they're not Jersey barriers, they're metal.
Same thing, it's,
But you're right,
It's
an
an obstruction.
aluminum can landing into it, which is what an airplane
grade.
yeah.
is a problem.
Let me be clear, the cease and desist demands only demanded or directed that they cease using the track.
That
The
portion of the
northern
track.
portion of the track.
That portion.
And frankly, my thought was, let's just get them to stop getting cars out there. But to completely eliminate the safety hazard, the embankment I think the embankment's gonna have to be leveled to original grade. And those barricades are gonna have to be moved, and the track's gonna have to be removed. That's the only way to remove the embankment.
Well, she states that in number 3.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I know. And the thing about number 3 that makes this difficult to read or to discern her intentions is that number 3, according to our former guidance, was that's the first thing you got to do. We're not going to deal with anything else until you do that.
Right.
Now it's number 3 out of 5 items, and so and if you put the lead in, if the following conditions are met, together with the conclusion, one could read this as saying, as a whole, it's expressing sort of a stand down from that prior position, and these are all things that are going to have to be done, and we might interpret this as being, get all these things done, including number 3 now, within a reasonable period of time. But that's reading into it something that's not plainly there.
Some things that kind of jumped out at me as I looked at her email here. Yes, she said the following conditions are met. There could be a potential for a green light of something. But the way I see it is all of these things must be met. And I thought it was interesting that more than once it was stated that the airport deed restriction provides for aeronautical use of the airport property only. That was mentioned more than once in her email.
Say that again?
Right?
Are you talking
More
about
than
number 1?
once, it's mentioned that the airport deed restriction provides for aeronautical use of the property only.
Are you talking about number 1?
Yes.
Yeah,
It says return upon demand from a qualified aeronautical. In other words, they could use it, but if a demand comes up, if somebody says, I want to put a FedEx package handling center, their lease goes away.
Bingo.
That's all that's saying.
Yeah.
Or that's the way I
no,
read it.
no.
He said more than once. He didn't say number 1. I think he's saying more than once. He sort
I'm
of,
saying more than once, it's stated in her letter that the deed restriction provides for aeronautical use of the airport property only.
Right, but I think it wants an addendum, is what I read, and then if you.
But right, she says that for a non-aeronautical use, an addendum must be made to the lease. However, the lease may be written,
I just keep reading, okay, and further down in 2, it says non-aeronautical.
to make sure aeronautical use can return to that piece of property. Right.
Upon a need. But not right now, immediately, is what I'm reading.
Right. When an aeronautical
Right. That's just the least.
demand is there.
I want to make
Yeah.
sure that's in there.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that she said as a condition of a retroactive temporary agreement to allow non-aeronautical use on the airport property, a lease addendum would be required to make sure aeronautical use can return, right?
but it does say too, that if there is no other aeronautical land use available.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's,
And she also says that non-aeronautical operations should defer to aeronautical needs, and this requirement should be memorialized in whatever lease is drawn up.
Well, at least addendum.
Right.
Before we get further in the weeds here, let me just back us out for a minute. Remember, Katura's email that we received this afternoon is in response to the firm's
Proposal.
suggestions and proposal from Monday, yesterday. So I think it gets us back, and Couture has taken us down, I think, the same path. I think the FAA's approach is still the same. There's a safety hazard and safety issue with that portion of the track that is outside their leasehold boundaries and within the RPZ, TOFA, ROFA, TSA. So we know from other communication from Orlando as well as Couture, she has said that has to go before we can move forward then with a change in use process. The FAA has a process for that and forms we have to fill out.
What's the change of use?
The change of use from aeronautical to non-aeronautical.
But it's always been non-aeronautical, so what's changed?
No, it's not.
The firm?
Yes.
That was where the mistake was made.
That was one of the issues, is that the FAA recognizes every square foot of our airport as aeronautical use.
Sure.
That
Going to
was
the deed.
never, from the original lease, it was never changed to non-aeronautical use.
Even though it never had an aeronautical role?
No, it always had an aeronautical because that's what the FAA designated it once the city received that deed from DOD
Right.
for the airport. There are certain grant assurances and other stipulations, regulations
Right.
that we have to comply with.
But when the firm initially got their lease, it was non-aeronautical always.
I got to interject here.
No, when the firm first, not the firm, when the European Rally,
Right.
that was the original leasee.
and that was 1999, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
My understanding from what the FAA's research is, and from what we showed in our files, that property was aeronautical because it was part of the airport, our 2,400 acres. There was never a change in use applied for with the FAA.
So how did they get the lease?
And why,
They were always
weren't
non-aeronautical.
That,
right, and why are we
to
determining
know-
this now in 2025? That's the thing. It's like, for this long of a period to go by, and again, they've been operating business as usual, and then all of a sudden, here's all these things that are wrong, that's all of a sudden being thrown in their lap at the last second.
Because you had humans making rules and they make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. Oh, gosh. Have we got to get under the table?
sorry. Is your phone going to turn into smoke after this?
What president?
When you get back to, just for your edification, that skid track where you see the limestone boiling up, that was runway 1634.
Right.
The drive, the road that goes into the firm was a taxiway. That was an aeronautical use. Where those cars drive, airplanes taxi.
Yeah.
And I believe it was in the late 80s, they went to rehab the runway, and the FAA says, you've already got 2 runways. If you want to do it on your own, the city can pay the $5 million to it.
Right.
And the city didn't have it, so they closed the runway, which is not unusual. Airports do that. So that right there tells you that was aeronautical. Airplanes were taxiing
Right.
where their gate is to make the entry into their
I
compound.
understand that.
I think the answer to your question is their predecessor actually constructed that track and without a request for approval from the airport or the FAA. So
It appears that way.
it appears that way.
But the thing is again, all of that's been in place for a very long time. The track was put in place in 2006. And it didn't take place overnight. None of that happened under the cover of darkness. It's been there. Everybody's known about it. It's just all of a sudden it's a problem now. And just like with that, they're not. And that's why I side with them and understand their frustration because of the fact that all of a sudden, all of these things that were done wrong, that were mishandled in this board, regardless who the board members were throughout the time, this board should have some responsibilities in correcting and helping and assisting correct this problem, because it does fall on the responsibility side of the airport. We have, things that were approved by attorneys. We have things that were, it's all of some of the stuff that has been laid out in the FOIA information, and I'm hoping that everybody has seen that, because when I've looked at some of that, it's really opened my eyes to some things that I have a lot of questions about. Of things that have taken place in the past, that pertain to this whole issue. And I feel like they do have a legitimate complaint. I may be the only one with that voice right now that has that, but there are some significant things in that FOIA information that's been provided to all of us now that definitely need to be addressed.
We could grandfather it in. But when this runway out here needs to get paved and the FAA says you're not getting grants from us anymore, we've been put between a rock and a hard place.
I'm not talking about grandfather. I'm talking about doing everything we can to work with them and help them.
I think we're trying to do that.
And that's what we're trying to do. That's what
Let me give you an
That's what we've
example.
been trying.
It's not that I don't think we are. I don't know if we're doing enough.
Let me give you an example. Here's another scenario that happens in residential communities, and I know this for a fact.
Well, is that relevant though to here?
No, it is. I got to give you an example, if I may be allowed to speak. People have property boundaries, do they not?
You got 90 seconds.
My neighbor, they've got their line, I've got my line. Do you know that there are times when a well has been drilled on a neighbor's property and they've been pumping water for 20 years? Now it gets discovered when the people that's house it's on go to sell that house and there's quitclaim deeds and all this done and it's discovered. You think that just should be let go? It can't be.
There are things.
It has to be corrected. We have been caught.
But there's people here that have been around through a lot of this that
didn't know.
Approved things and all.
We didn't know. You don't believe that, but we really didn't know.
We didn't till 2016, okay? But let me say this. Please give me a few minutes. We can solve this. If you'll just listen to me, let me ask a few questions. Anybody on this board been over there for hours and hours and hours over the last 2 or 3 weeks? No.
Not for hours, but I have been over there.
You have?
Yes.
But hours and hours. So my point on that is I've tried to listen to their side. That's what we do as a board. We're here to help everybody out, and they are our tenant, okay? And I went and got some insight. I am very grateful for Jim. Jim spent some time on the phone with me and was very helpful, okay? We don't agree on a couple of things. And that's why I want us as a board that I want you to stop me anytime, but if you'll just listen to me and then listen to what I think we can do, you're going to go, I think that's a good idea and I think we can do that. Because this is going, and Jim, you said this. Jim looked, well, you said it on the phone, you go, Buck, you're going round and round and round. And I understood that. But even tonight, I sit here and go, okay? Quick question, then I'm going to make a few comments, okay? Are they in compliance? Because Jim just said, okay, they stopped the cars. So are they in compliance? Just real quick, are they in
With the
compliance?
cease and desist?
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I guess they are.
Well, we're a board member.
I think they are.
You think they are?
I think they're in compliance with that request.
Jim, are they in compliance? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, because you're the lawyer. Okay, my point.
I would say that is not the end of the issue, however.
It's not, but for them to go, they can't go to the next step, which is listen to me, to their fair market value, which determines whether they really are going to stay or are they going to help and spend money and however we do that to fix their track, okay, which is one issue. But are they going to do all of that and then go fair market value? You can't tell us. And so we need to know that. Well, they can't know that until we fix the track.
Exactly.
Now, let me back up to me. I'm here the first night, and I voted to cease and desist. Why did I do that? Because it's a safety issue. I just voted strictly because it was a safety issue. Listen to me. Because if this ever went to litigation, you know how long it's taken us to deal with the safety issue? Anybody know? Help me out here. Over a year. Over a year.
That's correct.
For a safety issue.
Right.
And their side is, you tell me this is a safety issue and it's gone on a year? You guys have known we've been in the RPZ since 2016, okay? And then, oh, wait,
That's not correct.
okay, well, help me if that's not true.
2006.
That they knew it was in the RPZ.
That's when the track.
No.
Yeah, but then in
No.
2016, there was something that came out that they said, but that's okay, if that's not true, let's just do the last year.
2024.
February 20.
That's when we found
When
out.
all of this started was
Really?
February of
Yeah.
20.
There wasn't a
You're
plan.
listening to their narrative.
No, I'm helping you. It doesn't matter to me, Scott. It really doesn't, because here's the deal. When did we find out?
In 24.
We found out
February
when we sent,
2024.
So a year ago.
Yep.
Did I not say a year ago, we
Yeah.
found out? What have we done for that 1 year? This is March. What have we done? Listen to me. December, we went and got a survey in December, 2 months ago, that showed how far they had went into the RPZ zone. In December.
After a year, right? Now, do you know why?
It doesn't matter.
You weren't on the board.
No.
No, listen.
Okay.
Listen, we've heard you. Craig has been going back and forth with the FAA. It started out at the local FSDO office in Orlando. Then Ms. Hines went and elevated it to the regional office. So
Okay.
that threw a wrench into the gears. Now you got to start it all over with the regional. You're listening to their narrative.
Well, I'm not, Scott. If you want
No,
to believe
no,
that, you
no,
can believe that.
no,
I
I'm
want to
telling
finish
you.
my story. I asked for permission.
Okay, well,
And
don't say it was 2016 when we knew. That's incorrect.
And I'm going to go, okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
we knew
even
in
going to,
2024.
a year
Go
ago.
ahead. Yep.
As I understand it, the reason for a survey that was done in December
Okay,
was to confirm the actual point-to-point of the RPZ line,
absolutely, absolutely.
to confirm exactly where that's at on the ground.
More, 1 year after we found out it was in the safety zone. Listen to me. I
Because there
voted
was
the
some
first,
doubt somewhere as to where the
After we
actual
found out
points
that the-
were.
is that their fault?
No, after we found out that the FAA said it was intruding.
Which was a year ago.
February 23.
It's a safety issue,
February
and the
23,
first night on this
2024.
board, I am 1 hour into the board and I voted. I voted to shut them down because it's a safety issue, okay?
Okay.
I get that.
Yeah.
But for them, they're going, did we have enough time to do this? Okay? And that's the question we gotta ask, because if we've done this in a way that they're gonna go, really, this is a safety issue and you knew about it for a year, but you never did anything, I just want to go,
Well, Craig put together a corrective action plan.
when?
When did you?
Last year.
July,
Last year he tried it.
When did you
we've
submit the
we've
corrective action?
we've done a
Sent it to the
voluntary
FAA.
corrective action plan after communication with the FAA and
Trying to help them keep
being
their track open.
noticed with the potential noncompliance letter.
Okay?
Then we did more research, found out exactly, the FAA shared with us exactly what they found out
Okay?
with respect to the intrusion into the RPZ. Craig came up with a voluntary corrective action plan that the FAA requires that we submit
Okay?
on how to mitigate those potential noncompliance issues.
And we submitted that one in June or July?
You remember, Craig, what that date was on the first submittal?
It was, originally submitted a draft to them in July, the FAA. Then I had a meeting with the FAA about the draft. At no time did they say, this draft sucks, don't submit this. So it was eventually submitted in September. As first week in September. The FAA did not respond to that CAP submission until the end of November.
Right.
So in fact, what we allowed to happen, Buck, which you could argue is really bad on us, is we allowed this infraction to exist but we were trying to be good neighbors. We were
I'm good
trying
with
to let
that.
them.
I'm good with that.
you
I'm
know,
not saying y'all
not
did anything
crush
wrong.
their world.
Good point. All I'm
so-
saying is,
We would have shut them down a year ago and think of the revenues they would have lost then.
Can I add something to this to help you out there, Buck? Because again, we're going to go backwards a little bit in history, because I think this is pertinent. This goes back to some of the FOIA information that was provided to us from them. On December 5th, 2023, there was an email that came from this airport to the FAA, basically describing that the fair market value wasn't correct and that there was property on that leasehold over there that was running into the RPZ, as well as labeling them as extremely uncooperative tenants. Okay, that came from this airport. That was in December of 2023. And then a couple months later, when the FAA finally sent their letter back, was in February 8th, 2024. And in that letter, it says in there that the FAA non-compliant, or the district office ADO, has been made aware of several non-aeronautical leaseholds that appear to be in non-compliance. That was them addressing what it appears to me, the email that was sent from this airport advising that there was those issues over there. And right now, my concern is not with the person that sent the email, because that person, they wouldn't have had the history, they wouldn't have had the experience. It's how did that information come to be, and who gave the orders to send that information? That's where my concern's at, because some of this other FOIA stuff,
If we didn't even know about it till February.
that's where that needs to be corrected. Because it wasn't that we didn't know about it. It was known about.
How do you know that?
No, because it's in the FOIA information from the email.
You show me.
Okay, while they're doing that, fine. Stick with me, because we're
Yeah,
fixing to go a little bit.
go back to your,
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit faster,
Possibilities.
because
Okay.
to be honest with you, all of that we can't undo.
Right.
And I am not here to point my finger at anybody. What I am here to say is that I've done my homework, and that's what I do, okay? And in doing my homework, the question is, and Jim knows better than I do, okay? Are we maybe gonna be sued? Okay, and if we do, why? Listen to me. I don't know about y'all, and this is the white elephant in the room. This is my second meeting, and I'm going,
all right?
everybody I talk to in this room, I'm just telling you, they've got great hearts, and they're going, why can't y'all solve this? So listen to me. We can either do this for another month, and I'm gonna go, Dave, I'm going to my beach, and I'm going, this isn't what I signed up for. I signed up to help the board, the airport, the community. You know how many people was at the firm this weekend? Anybody know? Anybody
I'd say
know?
about 4,000.
8,000
7 to
people.
8,000.
Okay.
8,000 people.
Yep.
And I want to go, they're great tenants, but watch this, great word, because I get it, Scott. I get it. The messenger and the message, be careful. Y'all are upset with some of the people over there, and that's not fair. I have
That's not true.
Well,
let's,
Scott, it might not, stop arguing. It might not be with you, but I've talked to people around here, and they are upset. So I'm not going to put them.
Only
carry on,
after
but
they
we-
came in.
David,
Carry on,
thank
if you
okay,
will.
because we're going to solve this. It's not about pointing our finger. We're a community, and I'm telling you, if we keep going, and we don't come tonight, if you'll listen to me, I'm fixing to tell you, I really think that we can solve this. And we keep.
Tell us how.
Okay?
Tell us how to fix
So
it.
here's my thing. I step in and I go over there because I'm upset. I'm going, I don't know what the crap's going on here. And I have a pleasant meeting with Lance, with Bryn, with Lorena, and all of them were just as respectful because I was wanting to hear from them. And they do have some good points. I don't care if you think some of
You're
them,
aware of the
but
intrusion.
but the thing is we're in a thing where they don't know what they have to do to come into compliance. We don't know. Even right now, I want to go, you don't think that causes a problem when somebody, huh?
Talking to Bobby.
Okay. But they thought they were in compliance because the cease and desist says don't run the cars on the track.
On that section of the
On
track.
that, I'm sorry, that's all we're talking about. We don't care
Just
about the
that
rest of the
portion,
track.
just that
Yes.
portion.
Me, I'm thinking, until I heard that, I'm going over and I'm going to solve this for everybody. You know what I said? I'm going to take my tractor, and I'm going to pull up those rails, and I'm going to level that thing. And I'm serious, and they were good with that for a while, okay? But we have to have approval and FAA and all that. Well, all of a sudden, the lawyers get involved, which is fine. That's great. You've made some progress, okay? But it had to come from the attorneys. Well, then I come back on this side. Says, well, wait a minute. Y'all stick with me here. That's our property. The RPZ zone, who owns that, General Eifert? The RPZ, who owns that? The airport or the firm?
Airport.
Well, the airport
The
owns all
airport
the
does.
property.
So why do we have to get permission from them to go remove that? Why can't I go out there and remove that? Then they're in compliance. Because Jim is much wiser than all of us, okay? And good on Jim. I went to Craig. Craig says, you know what?
What did Jim say?
Jim said, you know what, Buck, why don't we just send them a letter and make sure that everything's okay? And I thought, that was brilliant. Why? Because we don't want to fight with them. Now, did I go over there and go, hey, I need some clarification here, and would y'all be okay with this? And they go, our attorney's involved. And I said, okay, crap, okay? Because in my opinion, I voted to shut it down for a year. It has not been shut down. And if you don't think, and I get you, Scott, the FAA isn't going to be upset with us to go, this has gone on for a year. Y'all have not solved all of this? They're okay with us moving. And then where's Bill? Craig and I went out there. Craig, good on Craig. I don't know the answer to that. He calls Bill. He gets me an answer in 2 minutes. What's the setback? Because I said, Craig, I'm not coming out here and moving all of this, which I could do in a day, okay? Let me ask you this. Once that track's moved and it's level, are they in compliance? I say yes. But they're in compliance on their end now because they've done everything that cease and desist letter has said. I'm going, wait a minute, don't get in the weeds. We want to solve this. So if we take and get everything out of the RPZ zone with Bill, 10 foot, well, you told me 5, but you said 10, and Brent said, I'm good with 10. Okay, so all that's solved, okay? And we can do all of that. And I go, wow. Now we can go to the next step of fair market value. They're okay with that.
No, the next step is change in use.
Okay, all right. And so I agree. And I'm going 20-something years, it's not aeronautical. You think anybody's going to not let them use it? Because the intent, Jim, you got to help me here, it's not to kick them out of here. Not for our community that they put in, Lord knows how much money and gas for all those vehicles and all that. And if that happened years down the road, so be it. FedEx comes in here and says, we want to buy all that. Guess what? I mean, I don't know how we do that legally if you give them so much time, but right now, that's not the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is we can't go and finish the third step of fair market value till we get it back in compliance. And I'm saying, I think they're ready to do that. They're ready to do that, and we can,
Not according to that.
what's that?
That's their attorney's letter to us yesterday, offering long-term and short-term and wanting an extension to use all of the track for another, how many
36
days? 36 days.
All
That's
right,
because
so let's
they've
talk
got
about that.
contracted customers, you know,
Yeah,
and then
let's
all of a
talk
sudden
about
this got thrown in their lap.
This is where y'all need to, I'm not selling anything, I'm just trying to give options, okay? That's true, but that's what they're sending, Dave. So we can deny that. So I got a quote from Valancourt this morning. So you're gonna go, Buck, are you getting anything out of this? Let's just make sure.
Who's Valancourt?
Paving, Donald Valancourt, that was my neighbor. Great guy. Cody called me this morning and said, here's the numbers. So I had went over there to say, whatever the number was for them to move their track and get it paved, okay, what is that gonna cost them? All right, and I said, I'll do all the lime rock and the clay with my tractor. Brent's got equipment, we can make all that happen. And then Valancourt Paving will come in and pave so they got a new track. Well, Brent the other day, which I thought was good too, he goes, why can't we go ahead and do that now? I think they were trying to use the track that as it is now, if they got the extension. Yeah, that's up to y'all. We can talk through that because that is. But if you go, no, we're not going to do that, I'm a B student. The goal is to get that track back up and running for them. Is that not fair? Out of the RPZ zone. So if I have to go take it, get them in compliance, so now we're moving forward, and then we will go put the new track in a week or two. And if you guys don't want to do the 36-day extension, then that's up to y'all. I'm not trying to sell that. I do understand from their part that they've been down for 3 weeks. And if they could do that, can we have an operation where somebody's in a radio? Because I asked, I said, how long? She goes, it'd take us 15 seconds to stop the track. Now, there's no more cars on the track. You with me? And the airplane can land for 1 year. That track's been in that RPZ zone. Now, I'm just going to give one other thing because this is on their side. So listen. So I go out with Craig the other day. Did you know we had a tree at the end of the RPZ ice, General Effort? Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
we're,
it's outside the RPZ.
no.
It's inside the RPZ?
Oh my God, yeah. Now, Craig did the right thing, and Craig went and took it out. All I'm saying is, I think we're missing the big picture here. I'm a safety guy, sort of. Don't say anything. I think we go move the track so that FAA goes, okay, y'all done the right thing. And then while we're doing that, we figure out, line everything up so that they can get the inside of the track done, okay? And they're back in operation, Dave. Once we do that, then we've been a team with them. When they do you're gonna laugh at this, okay? This wasn't all my idea. I mean, I'm serious. The community people that said, bring in the community, you got a new track, and you do a grand opening for them. We stopped the fighting. Why? Because this brings in a lot of money to our community. I had dinner with Scott Cornegay the other night. I've had several meetings with Charlie Van Zandt. I am busting my butt. Why? Not to get into weeds and fight with the messenger. I got to be honest with you guys. I understand. They're hurt too. Bren, super guy. He literally told me, he goes, this is the worst thing I've ever gone through in my life. And that's wrong. It didn't have to be this way, all because they were in the RPZ. We couldn't solve it. I'm not going to say I'm not pointing at any fingers. The bottom line is we're a year down the road and that RPZ is still in violation in my eyes. And we've done nothing. And I go,
That's not true.
no, I'm talking about, wait a minute. I'm sorry. We've done nothing.
Rephrase it then.
I will. Thank you, David. We've done nothing to go out there and move it. All I'm saying is, whose job is that? I've been trying to ask that. Jim was smart enough to go, we probably need to send a letter. I thought it was brilliant. But right now, why don't we just go work and get that back into where it's supposed to be, and now we can move down the road of fair market value. They're okay with all that. It's just the way we've gone about it, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's not getting done.
So let me,
Okay.
just a point of information. December the 17th of last year, I sent an email to Chris Corcoran, their
Okay.
chief portfolio officer, saying, hey, look, we're ready. Whatever you're looking at as far as track reconfiguration,
Right.
please send that to us. We'd like to see what you're proposing. We'll be glad to help any way we can.
Okay.
Never received a response.
Is he still their attorney, or is he the?
No, he's their chief portfolio
Okay,
officer.
that's right. Okay.
In February, we had gotten an email from Lorena asking, hey, what is the process or procedure for getting permission to put overlay asphalt over existing asphalt?
Okay.
And new racetrack areas and new roads.
Okay, that's legit.
It is.
We need to know
And-
that now.
And I responded.
Okay.
You've got a copy of that email too. I responded back and spelled out and told her, look, I mentioned this to Chris back in December.
Right.
This is now February, 2 months later,
Right.
almost to the date. We're glad.
Okay.
Send us what you've got. We're open to looking at that. We have yet to receive anything back. Now, I know the attorneys have gotten involved.
Right.
And that changes the complexion of the way you communicate between parties. But I think we're still to the same place that we've recognized, even though it's been there a year, whatever, it's still a safety hazard.
Right.
That's got to move. The FAA says that's got to go.
Okay. Let's go.
If that portion that's on the airport, here's the thing though, what do you think their response would have been if we would have rolled in over there, and even if we'd sent them a letter saying, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and move this out for you. You don't have to spend money. We're going to get it out of this RPZ. And that way, whatever you're going to reconfigure, send us that information. It gets me back to this.
Right.
I mean, they're telling us one thing, that they're willing for the track to be moved, but then now we're getting, well, wait a minute, we want to use it for so many more days.
Well, I get that, Dave, and that's why I'm not selling that. All I'm going is, y'all have got to make a decision for 36 days, okay? It's been over a year. But they're asking for 36 days. And I'm going, if you don't think that's reasonable where they can have a radio and, I mean, I don't have any problem with that, for God's sake, but you could just,
Their proposal doesn't involve radios, it involves closing the runway.
it doesn't involve closing the runway. Wait a minute.
Yes, it does. That's what they said.
It's in that lawyer's letter, a displaced threshold.
No, that was another option. That's not gonna
They
happen.
want to close the runway by no time.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
36 days over the next.
That was
2
an
months.
option.
Yeah.
What I would propose, really what I would propose right now, okay, is we go get it in compliance with the FAA, not what they think, not what we think, okay? What is compliance for us as an airport? And I'm telling you, this is a no-brainer, guys.
To be in compliance and don't use it.
We did just what the
that's-
FAA told us. We
listen
shut
to
it down
me.
temporarily.
Wait a minute.
You've been talking. I'd like to talk for a little
Well,
bit, please.
Hang on,
Let me finish my statement,
let's hear from Jim.
okay?
We're passionate.
Buck, I understand where you're coming from. You want to find a solution that can be effected immediately. But if that solution involves our unilaterally leveling the track
Okay,
to the extent of its intrusion into the RPZ, which is going to involve destruction of the track they constructed there,
okay,
outside of their lease boundary, granted.
right,
That's a default under the lease, it is. But if we were to do that without the firm agreeing for us to do that
right,
as an inexpensive, that is no cost, way for them to effect compliance with the RPZ and with the lease, if we were to do that unilaterally without their expressly agreeing,
I don't want to do that.
that's landlord self-help, and
got
even though it's self-help on our property
Right.
outside of the leasehold, Florida law very strongly disapproves of self-help remedies.
Okay, that,
Our remedy would be to make the demand on them.
okay,
And that's the letter you and I talked
Yep.
about. If we were in that position to make a demand on them, give them an opportunity to comply with the demand, and if they didn't, then go to court and try to get the court to tell them what they
okay. I
have
don't
to
think
do.
you're gonna have to do that. That's why.
I don't
if-
want to have to do
No,
that.
you're right, and
I've always believed, and I still believe it's in the airport's best interest to try as best we can to work with firm toward a timely solution that will receive FAA approval as an alternative to risk of litigation, where I've said before, and I still believe, if we're in litigation with firm, it's going to be long and unpleasant. They will make it so,
Right,
and it will be expensive.
right.
In the end, we have the meritorious position, but that's the place I don't want to go, because the airport doesn't need that distraction and that cost if we can
So what
avoid
if
it.
we offered them the self-help and they said yes? Is that bad?
No.
Okay.
That's
Well,
where I'm
then that's
going
where
with
Buck
this,
is, right?
gentlemen.
And either
Well,
that,
no. When Buck and I spoke last week, the missing ingredient to that formula was, I said, does firm agree with this? And Buck said, well, no.
No, I didn't know. I can't answer for them. But I can promise you this, we're at a thing where I think if people see the solution and they would agree to that, and you go, Buck, we're good now. We've got their permission. And through their lawyer that, and I don't know if this is what you're saying, we've got to move the track out of the RPZ.
That's right, that's
And
right.
get them back up and
But
running.
really, what you're suggesting, Buck, is really the exact same thing that David laid out in his letter to them.
I'm okay with that.
and what's wrong with having our attorney reach out to them? They're asking for that. It says in here that we are available together, that we'll be willing to speak with the FAA and to do a virtual meeting with the attorneys and all that to discuss these things and come up with.
I can't reach out to firm, I can only reach out to their lawyer.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying?
That's
What
who
you're
it is.
suggesting is exactly what David laid out in his letter to them.
Mr. Taylor.
So tonight, because y'all are starting to go, okay, we got a couple.
No, I'm sorry, we have two conversations going here.
Yeah, their
What their
attorney.
lawyers are proposing is this, which is not that they,
Right, and at the very end of that, it says that, they would be happy to have a virtual work meeting, and that they would be even willing to go to the FAA you know, with our assistance, that's what they're
But they
saying at
want
the
us
end of
to
that.
allow them to use the track starting
Right,
with
but
Saturday,
that's one option. I get that, but what if,
which is totally different than saying, yes, we're all on board with you guys on your nickel,
Well, let me-
eliminating the
I
infringement.
would like to speak now, please.
Briefly, please.
Well, you said you're a man that does your homework.
okay?
I suggest you go home tonight, you start tonight, and you'll be up till 5 o'clock tomorrow morning watching the videos of the meetings we've had with Ms. Hines.
Okay?
She was,
What's that gonna
she
accomplish?
was anything but cooperative. They're painting us to be the bad guys
No, they're
now.
not.
Scott,
It's
this
not
came out of
about.
left.
Wait, I'm talking now.
Field for them, though, but you interrupt me when I'm talking sometimes too. This came out of left field for them. That's why they were upset.
I'm sure, but the point
you all know
being,
that.
as I've said it all along, we've discovered a deficiency, whatever you want to call it, and we've got to deal with it. And Mr. Taylor told you at the very beginning of his talking, that was one of the caveats before the FAA would do anything. Now, let's stop right there. Let me give you some things that they've done, that they've had the opportunity.
I don't care, Scott. That's not my point.
You don't care?
I don't care because we
Well,
need a
here's what I care
solution,
about.
Scott.
Well, that's what I'm going to lead you to. Mr. Kuhn hired, I don't know how we found him, but we got an appraiser, okay? And he came up with a dollar amount, and they just thought that was astronomical and it was too much. So they asked for the property, for the fair market value. Please listen now. Just listen with an open mind. I've tried to do that,
I just
okay?
think we haven't solved what we got to do, and that doesn't come into play till we do all of this.
Well, but I'm going to give you some examples of working together. This word collaboration, I just love it. They throw it out like it's free. Did they or did they not ask if they could get their own appraisal? Yes or no?
They did.
They did. Did we get that appraisal?
No.
They've never gotten the appraisal, okay?
There's a reason why.
Well, I don't care about that. I'm just giving you an
Can I add something
example,
to
but
this
wait a
real quick?
second.
'Cause this is
No,
important.
wait a second.
When that appraisal came, okay, we took a vote on this board for a lease that we were told verbally that was going to expire. It was 25 years that was going to expire, and we were never given the actual lease. We voted on an appraisal for a lease that we had not even.
I'm just taking my argument one step
And
at a
then
time.
there's also FOIA'd information of an email of a board member telling the airport manager, when they're trying to figure out how to let them know about the appraisal, is to tell them that we're appraising all of the airport property. Why would that need to be
I don't
done?
know about those details. I'm talking about a simple
It's in the
thing.
FOIA'd
I'm just talking
information.
about one thing here.
We shouldn't, that
Let me finish, if I may. Let me just finish.
or attempt.
So they had an opportunity to go get their own appraisal, but they never did it.
Okay?
But that was a big deal to them, that amount of money. Do you know how much they've been
Absolutely.
paying? The last thing they're paying right now is $26,000 a year. That comes out to $7 and something an acre. And then they'll tell you, well, there's a lot of that land we don't use. But that's neither here nor there. They had an opportunity to go get their appraisal. Now, when you talk about a tree in the RPZ, do you know we have a state inspection every year by the DOT? I've gone out there for years and done it. Bobby's been doing it the last 2 years. Did that guy tell you about a tree that was a problem in that RPZ at that time? All of them were clear, weren't they? Did we not pass our inspection? Don't worry about the tree.
It's gone.
The other
Somebody
thing
moved it.
is,
Who moved it?
who
moved the
elected
tree?
you?
Who moved the?
No. You just cut a tree down, but I'm saying it was not identified by the
then they
DOT
should've left it.
inspection. Okay? Now, let me ask you this. Are you worried by you going over unilaterally, because I don't remember the board selecting you to go over and negotiate with them.
Right.
But it's okay, you've done it.
Right, absolutely.
You're going out for a quote with Valancourt Paving. Do
Yep.
you know that she mentioned in one of the meetings that she thought the airport ought to pay for the reconfiguration?
I don't care about that
Okay.
right now, Scott.
Well, you don't, but I do.
Okay?
What if it costs $500,000? Are you authorized to negotiate on this board's half,
Scott, I don't,
getting quotes?
Scott, listen to me.
I've been listening to you.
Yeah, I don't,
Who picked you to go over there?
I did,
Okay,
because I'm a
Okay.
board member and I can do that.
okay.
And if it
So
wasn't,
you can negotiate for this
I
board?
didn't say anything about negotiating.
You're
Did
getting
I?
a quote from
Did I say
Valancourt?
anything?
Did you say you're getting a quote from Valancourt Paving?
I got a quote from Cody that I'm friends with to say, Cody,
Okay.
what would you charge for this amount of payment, just so that they would know and we would know? Now,
Okay.
I'm not gonna go into any other depth.
Could they take that into court and construe that as us trying to possibly work something out? I don't know.
That's a
Okay, Thank you,
hypothetical.
David. Thank
That's a
you, David.
hypothetical.
There's
We're gonna
nothing
move
in
on.
writing.
Well-
I'm doing,
We're-
wait a minute, let me solve. If you'll let me talk, we're gonna solve this.
Are we
I'll
going to hear
say
the same
one more
thing you
thing.
done?
I'll say one more
I'm
thing
gonna
on my
make-
behalf.
Wait a minute.
I am not against, I don't want to close down that track. I just want to go on record. I would like to work something out with him, but it takes two to tango. Now, if you think you've got all the answers, you haven't been on this board, you need to go back and look at all the YouTube videos. Please do
Why?
that.
Why?
So that you'll be informed. You said
No,
you do your homework.
Scott, I'm telling you, what we need to do, all that stuff in the past.
Is irrelevant.
Thank you,
okay.
thank
I'm
you,
done.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Because if we don't solve this, there's no need to talk about a fair market value. What there's a need is we're gonna go to court and we're gonna fight.
Let's
for
do it
months
there.
and
Let's let
months.
the judge work it out.
You,
But
Thank-
but
okay,
really,
wait a minute,
like
here's-
I said, what
That-
you're proposing is really in
not-
line with what he'd sent to
I
them.
couldn't agree more. The only thing is the communication has not been there. I'm not blaming anybody.
Oh, it has been there.
You
No,
don't
no,
say
no.
that.
An email.
If it was, okay, let me say this. I'm telling you, right now, the communication of is that track in compliance? And we have different answers from them to us. Listen,
I'm gonna say
not
partially,
kidding.
I'm gonna say partially.
well, okay, partially, but the bottom line is until the track comes into compliance, whether that's the cars not being on it or we have to move the portion that's in the RPZ zone.
Right.
I don't,
Correct.
I don't think we have solved that yet. However, if we're a board and we're smart, we're gonna go move that RPZ. Jim is, huh?
Not the RPZ.
The part that's in the RPZ.
The track that's in.
The track, that's, okay, the track, okay, y'all know what I'm talking about. So however we get their approval, Jim, to go do that, and whoever does it, I'm just saying, I can go do that,
Okay, so there's a step that can be taken.
okay? Thank you, sir.
To get the track,
Back into compliance with us, forget them.
Well-
Okay,
and it will involve Mr. Taylor writing a letter to them, notifying them that this board will get that removed.
okay,
Assist?
We're going to vote on us removing it?
No. I'm just saying,
The letter.
we're talking about a possible resolution for just what needs to be looked at. I still say though, and I agree, hey, Craig has talked to 2 or 3 different people about costs and how we could get equipment in there.
Right.
From, we'll say from who right now, but
Right.
he's already been on top of that.
okay,
So that's always been in the picture, and it's, like David said, it was part of my email.
yeah,
Track's got to go. And then we can do change of use, then we do fair market value.
Okay.
Do appraisal. So I think though, we're still challenged, and I think that would be great if we hadn't have gotten this, because now this throws a kink in that.
you talking about the 36 day?
Yeah,
Yeah, from their lawyer.
Well, that's their recommendation. If we're not gonna go with that, that's up to y'all.
Is it?
Well, who's it up to?
Maybe just
Absolutely.
you, I don't know.
Why can't
Well-
Mr. Taylor reach out to their, because that is their lawyers that are asking.
We're the
them.
bad guys.
Why can't we have the legal people talk to each other and say, are you good with this? Are you good with that? Can they move some dates around? Can we, can we all agree on something? And then we move forward. I understand what Buck's trying to say, but let the legal people talk back and forth, and let them see if they can determine what can work and then bring it back and say, this is what both parties are agreeing to.
I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
Mr. Ludwig. Here's the issue. He can speak for us after we have given him what we want him to,
Direction or whatever, yeah.
direction.
But can we just say that? Can we give him that permission and say, can you please address the letter we just got from Couture today? And we see your concerns, what can we do to meet on common ground to get this, so we can work out this problem?
Well,
That's what they've proposed here in their email that they sent yesterday.
Right, but they may
And
be
my
willing to
question
because
is- My question is, and I don't know the answer, is there any way that we, the airport, can, from a practical standpoint, meet their request to use the track on 36 days over the next 2 months in such a way that we can be confident that their usage will involve no risk of an aircraft colliding with a motor vehicle that's in the RPZ in a manner that is compliant with FAA requirements? That's my question.
That's
I would-
excellent.
And it sounds like having Katura's approval to me.
Well, this,
Can we do that in that short of time?
well, this Katura here, in my opinion of what I've read, she has provided a little more information, but she's still got the same steps in place. The track's got to go.
Right.
The
Yeah.
change in use has got to
Yeah.
happen, and a fair market value appraisal has got to be done. It's the same
that order.
game plan
Yeah.
that we've been trying to resolve.
Right.
Now, I think our issue here is back to their request.
Okay. I'm with you, David.
Now, we've already tried through the FAA, that voluntary corrective action plan, and this was done, Craig, working with Bren about having track monitors, using radios, trying to notify air traffic, et cetera. That was submitted to the FAA, and they said, no, they wouldn't approve that.
Right.
So that's one of the issues. The second is the fact that nothing has changed from the safety hazard. The safety hazard is still there.
You're speaking my language. So here's where I'm trying to go.
But, okay, and I agree, removing it
Right.
takes care of that. But it complicates this because of now their request for an extension
Right.
for us to relax something that we have already said it's through the advice of our lawyer,
Right.
and it might be 1 in a trillion or 1 in a million, but it only takes one.
Okay, so David, give me
May I say something?
1 minute.
No.
I think we, okay,
Let him
go
say.
ahead.
Thanks. And so I think the firm lawyers accept that the track's got to be removed.
Okay.
The embankment has to be removed, the barricade has to, everything that's above ordinary grade in the RPZ, I think the firm's lawyers accept that. The question their proposal presents to me in one sense is, do we do the track removal now, or do we let them use the track for 36
Bingo.
days and then do the track removal? And if it's the latter, then the question is, can that be accomplished in a practicable FAA compliant way to where we are reasonably assured that we have eliminated the chance of an aircraft motor vehicle collision within the RPZ? And that's where I need some help. I don't know if the proposals they're suggesting for accomplishing that assurance
Right.
are something that the FAA would approve, because previously, with respect to both of the alternative solutions they propose, they've been proposed by us to the FAA and they've been shot down. And do you read this as completely backtracking from that prior guidance? It would be reading something in there that's not laid out that way.
One thing I didn't understand until today either, after talking to Craig, is I thought that the cease and desist order removed the safety violations that we had there. It hasn't, because there's barriers and there's grades.
That's correct.
Right.
And
That was the first step.
That may be my shortcoming, but
So I didn't know that
we
until
had
today.
received up to the point that letter was sent, and the board made the decision to direct me to send that letter. We had received up to that point in time.
No, this is my fault because I didn't do my homework.
Well,
I
but-
realized that stopping the track
Right.
did not remove the safety violation.
Right.
The safety violation is the barriers, the bankment, all that stuff. I didn't know that until today.
But General,
That's bad on me.
We had received zero cooperation from firm up
Well,
to that
regardless,
point,
so,
right?
but I'm just trying to move forward.
And so my conception was, we received zero cooperation. I was doubtful they would comply with the cease and desist at any level, but I thought, let's take the most obvious possibility for a calamity
Right.
And that's where an aircraft and a motor vehicle collide in the RPZ.
Right,
So
but-
let's start off by just
Okay, yeah, I get it.
stop the use
That's
of
a
it.
step.
And
That's a
then
step.
we'll deal with the rest of
Right,
it.
but an aircraft could still hit that barricade or the ramp or whatever.
Understood.
And we still are in the same position. We've been, for a year now, in violation of the FAA's order to
Safety.
fix the RPZ, right? And so the cease and desist, I did not realize until today, has not really corrected the
right, so
safety
here's-
violation.
Real quick, here's our options, gentlemen. Here's our options. It's your call, not mine. Do we go accept this, Jim? Which I don't think y'all are, okay? But if we don't do that, then let's go get the plan going so that you remove all of that, the track's out of the way. However they do this, I don't work for them, they don't work for me. I'm a public servant. That my job is to help our tenants and the people in our community, and that's what I've been doing. If anybody doesn't see that, then I go, ooh, man. So I say, Jim, being our guy, he needs to orchestrate, okay, as fast as we can, their approval to go make it safety for us. Has nothing to do with them. It's us right now. And so once we do that, then let them go figure out, okay, we're going to redo the track and be working those issues. And it's all done in 2 or 3 weeks, and we don't do the 36. Are you with me? Bill?
I'm sorry to,
No,
you've
help me.
mentioned a couple times, and I want to go back to
Okay.
something that was in David's email in December.
Yep.
I would caution them
Yeah.
Okay,
against reconstructing any track
they know
without
that.
first obtaining a water management district permit.
They know
without
that.
First obtaining approval from the FAA through the.
They know
notice of
that.
Proposed construction.
And they need to get going with that. You're right,
Sir,
Bill.
neither
Yeah.
one of those happens in 2 or 3 weeks. Both of those processes are defined in months.
Okay,
So.
all I'm saying is that's on
polishing the
them,
track is a 1-week activity.
but hear my heart.
Reconstructing the track is months.
And
Okay,
two, we have requested
right,
that they provide us
right.
with a detailed
They need to do that.
description of their proposed reconfiguration or
Yep.
new roads, whatever, because we have to approve that.
Okay.
The FAA has to approve that, and this, as he just stated, there could be water management permitting in that as well.
Right.
So that's why I said in my email, we are looking for a quick solution. This may not be a short-term solution, but it's still something that's got to be done.
I agree with
And,
that.
and I agree with what you just said. I think given our conversation from what proposals they have made, for example, the runway 1129, as far as displacing
No.
that threshold, we've already talked with the FAA about that. We talked
gonna
with
work
Bill about that. There's a process of FAA approval, just doing that on its own.
The
So,
cost.
yeah, and a cost.
Right.
Because, and here's the thing, it can't be intermittent, that we use it a little bit and then we don't use it, because the runway has to be remarked. So all those existing markings have to be sandblasted up and then new painting done
I don't think
on the
anybody here wants
displaced
to
area.
do that. That's
Well, okay, and I just want to make sure we all remember that, because that was one of their suggestions. And so I think what they have asked us to consider,
okay.
we've already considered and actually taken it before the FAA, and they're not going to approve it.
FAA's not going to approve.
That's
it.
correct.
Right.
So now, because we're a board and we're all smart people, okay?
But what it boils down to is what David had
Dave.
sent them.
Please let him finish.
Go ahead.
If they keep the track operating, it's not going to operate the way it is, even though they don't use it. They've asked to use it for 36 days. I don't think anybody here is going to do that. Just listening to y'all, okay? Because we're hanging ourselves out. FAA's looking at us.
That's
For
right.
over a year, we have left that track in the RPZ zone. I don't think that's an option. I'm open, but I don't think that's the option. So we're going to take that out. While we're doing that, to get us in compliance, has nothing to do with the firm. We're an airport authority board that we're responsible for that. In the meantime, Bill brought up a very good point. They've got to go figure out what all they've got to do. That's not our job, is it?
That's right.
No, so they got to go do that. And when they do that and figure out, I'm just the guy that says, I'll come bring us in compliance. We get their approval through Jim and their attorney. We'll come into compliance. Well, now we're good. Now we're good, okay? For 1 year, we're good. I highly recommend that. And then working with them, I will do whatever I can. I will help get deals. Scott Cornegay at dinner the other night said, Buck, tell me what you need. I'll bring resources, but I will do whatever we've got community that will help. Gentlemen, that's what we try to do. Don't let the messenger destroy the message because you're hurt, you're upset. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, our mission is to help them get their track back up and running. So I'm open if there's any other ideas. But in the meantime, we've got to bring that track in compliance with our RPZ zone.
Correct.
While we're doing that, Bill and people can figure out, okay, St. John's, anybody know General Burnett?
Yep.
On the St. John's River Water Management. We need to go speed that up. We can make that happen. I promise you, the engineers over there would not, just telling you that, they would more than happy help us as a board and a community. What can we do to help that firm get back up and running? Bill's more of an expert than I am.
They are using the track now, don't you?
They're
Did you
using
know that?
not the part that.
No, they are.
Okay. I
They're
didn't know that.
using the track minus the section we've asked them not to. They're doing it in 2 loops.
Well, that's what there's nothing wrong
That's
with
in
that.
compliance, so, right, as far as
Yeah, they are in compliance.
That's fine.
So that's what I'm saying. What is this deal about they got to have that whole connection?
All right, here's a great
If we want to,
illustration.
well, wait a second. If we want to talk about collaboration, why can't they just use it like it is? They are able to use the big part of the loop. And then I saw them out the other day using this part of the loop down, and they've isolated them. The other thing I don't want to happen is, again, I get back to it, and we don't talk about it, but this has a possibility of scooting down here. Well, if they go and change it to correct this right now, they've got to make sure when they do it, we don't want this to happen again, ever.
My email specifically
It talks about
current
areas.
and future.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So they are able to use the track. That's what's a little puzzling when I read this.
Well,
They can't use that extra little complicated loop in there. But believe me, they've got,
Yes, we've given them a graphic.
I don't know, I don't know how to put it in percentage, but I'm gonna say they've got 70% of a track over here. And they've got probably, or let's say they've got 65% of a track over here. And they've got 25% of a track over here. So they're missing that connection. And that's what's just kind of puzzling to me is they need it on these dates or they're gonna lose these clients. These clients are coming anyway, Buck, you know it, I know it. They are. They've got the track
I'd like to
rented.
respond to that.
Okay.
No,
Well,
you're
I'm
finished.
just saying, they are able to use part of this track right now. And we haven't stopped them from using this over here on this side.
Right.
But I'm gonna go back to this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but did you tell us as a board that the board can be sued, which would be if somebody gets hurt over there, and it could be 1 in a 5 million chance that an airplane and a car come together, but I've seen cars come off that track, they missed the turn. But not only can the board and the city be sued, well, the city can't, we're isolated, but we as individuals can be sued, can't we?
Scott, let me be clear about that.
Because I don't want to be sued. You call me selfish, you call me a jerk or whatever,
I didn't say anything.
I don't want to be
Who
sued.
said that?
I don't want anybody to get hurt.
My concern is that, if there were injuries or deaths that occurred due to something that happened in the RPZ because of the intrusion, any bright, reasonably creative plaintiff's lawyer
Right.
is going to look for as many pockets as he or she can find. And we should expect that would include not just the airport and not just the board as a body, but the individual members.
Who's voted for that?
I didn't say, and I do not have the opinion that there would be personal liability, but we would probably have to defend ourselves.
Right. And maybe let off the hook.
All right,
well, in any
Okay,
case,
I want to make a comment to his real quick to help explain. When you take that part of the track away from them, they do have customers that they want the big track. They don't want the small loop, okay? So let me ask you this. Scott, how long is our runway, our longest runway?
5,000 feet roughly.
5,000 feet. And you
Yeah.
go, well, you know what? Just take 1,500 feet off. What's the deal? You still got 3,500 feet. Can a Lear land on 3,500 feet? No, you're done. So be careful that we think in our world, okay, you just took this part of their track away. It's a lot more than that. And their customers who pay monthly are not happy because when they come out, they're going, okay, this isn't the track that I'm used to. Anybody here driven that track?
No.
I have.
Okay.
And my grandkids have, and it's awesome. But you go take the section out of there and it's boring. It's boring. It's just one little loop.
Well, it's not boring.
That's
but-
up for them to get it
It is, but the
reconfigured,
point is
We agree.
whatever they need.
That's
But they'd
definitely
rather shut, they'd
satisfying the
rather
safety.
shut down one of our runways for,
Well,
for
that-
safety of our
I
pilots.
agree, Scott, that's
during a
not an
period of
option.
time.
Well, that was an
We want to
option.
make, I want to make it work where they can stay in business. And you talk about friends, I've been friends with them over there for
know.
years, and I'm so disappointed it's come to this. I don't even go on their lease anymore. But regardless of what they told you, go back and look at the videos and see how we were treated as a board.
I know that's,
You know?
but that's not where I'm at.
Well,
I'm not. And
But you
I,
gotta be.
All right,
The safety requirement has to be satisfied first.
bingo.
Right.
go. All right.
That's
Matter of
it,
that.
fundamentally.
In the conversation that's happened here tonight, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I discerned a suggestion that the board might be agreeable to responding to firm's attorney's proposal from yesterday by saying, we're sorry, but no, we can't agree to suspend the cease and desist letter to allow the track to be used. However, we, the airport, is prepared to use its best efforts to assemble the wherewithal that would be required to undertake the elimination of the intrusion.
The barrier.
Yes, so that firm does not have to bear the cost of doing that as a means of curing that issue and eliminating the RPZ intrusion as an issue that we have to work out and as an issue that FAA is expecting to be solved, and we can move on to the next step. If that's the sense of at least some members of the board, then I would suggest that somebody make a motion.
Well, and then immediately, offer resources to do it,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
to assist them with,
Yes.
with that.
yes, hopefully in a way that would
Does it mean-
eliminate their having any cost that
Right.
they have to incur to cause it to happen.
And that's just to remove that section or those
Yes.
sections.
And, different people may view this differently, but the way I look at it is they've got improvements that they constructed without approval outside of their lease boundary. For the landlord to say, I'll help fix that without any cost to you is a real concession by the landlord.
Right.
I would agree with
I
that.
agree.
All right,
I think it's a good gesture on our part.
It would be a good job.
I think we need a motion to,
I move what he said.
A second.
Yeah,
There we go.
that's the easiest way to do it.
I have a question though about the suggestion. Is this going to be at what cost monetarily to the airport?
We can rent a piece of equipment and I can go over and tear it
How
up.
well,
much?
there's some other,
Can this be done
there's some
without any
other-
monetary cost to the airport?
there's some other resources that we're looking at that could very well make that happen at no cost to the airport.
That's what I would prefer to, part of that
And no cost to the
proposal.
That's
Our
correct.
objective would be to get this done as soon as practicable.
Yes.
Practicable means, among other things,
As soon as they
taking the
agree.
time to make sure that we can assemble as much assistance as we can without our incurring cost either.
And they have to agree to it, right?
They have to agree to it.
The other benefit is
Okay,
the
so-
FAA is also.
Shall I
gonna
make
see-
the motion?
They
No,
just
Have
made
we
it.
are-
Motion's already
just
been
made
made,
it.
Oh,
and we had a second.
But the other thing that's good about this is the FAA will see this, I think, in a positive light.
Bingo.
So it's a win-win-win.
I think that's great, Scott.
Okay.
That's what we're at.
Colonel, you made the second.
I did, sir.
Mr. Burning made the second.
And typically, he's second behind him.
All right, Any questions, any other comments about the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right.
Is there a second part of this letter that we need to talk about it all tonight, or is this this gets us to the short term, right? Was there anything about this long term?
I would say if they
Step in the right direction.
response to the short-term proposal, then we should launch immediately into discussion with them on the long-term solution.
With the lawyers, mean?
They are asking for a working session with the airport manager. That would, of course, be Mr. Kuhn, and planning engineering team. That would be Mr. Prang. I don't know.
I think as another gesture of goodwill, we want to demonstrate that we're immediately acting to help them get well.
Yeah.
And that, I think, then would be an appropriate thing for us to do as well, as we set up, not only are we fixing this short-term problem, we didn't get it the way you wanted, I'm sorry, but we're doing what we have to do. And, oh, by the way, we're moving.
And then engage with
expressly toward-
them to make sure that their reconstruction stays outside of current and future.
And so we're,
Protected
runway
we
environment.
need to now take the bull by the horns and move through it, right?
And it follows those things that Mr. Prang talked about, that we do it procedurally.
Do you have any comment on that, Bill?
You have something?
No, suggest having a meeting,
Yeah.
that sounds profitable.
Okay.
It remains to be seen how far we can advance the ball, but
For the long term.
for the long-term solution, but I
So-
think the ball is still in their court to propose a long-term solution.
Well, I think,
To the extent that we can have a discussion and help them.
see, we thought the ball was in their court at this time a year ago.
Yeah, well, one thing that occurs to me that they may be looking to us for some input is when it comes to the current and future protected areas that they need to stay out of with their reconfiguration.
Right.
With the information that we've supplied them so far, would they be able to have a surveyor go out and tell them where they need to, what areas they need to stay out of?
Yeah.
My email had an attachment that Mr. Prang provided.
Yes,
That showed the future RPZ
yes.
and all of those safety areas.
So a surveyor could take that and plot it out on the ground and stake it.
All of those shapes and lines are referenced to the runway end, which is a fixed
Got it.
point.
So you just run it off from there.
Did you guys just recently do that? Wasn't that just recently done where it was staked off actually?
That was just
For a
the
visual.
current RPZ. This is for future stuff that would need to be done.
Yes.
Okay, well, to me, that's
Engineer or a surveyor.
the input we would need to provide. Beyond that, I don't know to what extent we want to be involved in their internal, within their leasehold reconfiguration. They have to get it approved by us, but
But they've received that information already.
yeah. Okay, well, I think our role in that is going to be pretty straightforward and largely already accomplished then.
I would think.
And please don't take this the wrong way, but I have no interest in working for the firm. I work for the board, and I won't work for the firm. That would be a conflict for me. So to the extent that the board might want me to support Craig or somebody in a meeting, I'm happy to do that. But my role there is to help everyone understand FAA rules and regs
And state and local permitting requirements.
Well, just get that for free. I would think anybody they hired to help reconstruct their track would also know you don't build something without a water master district permit. At least you don't unless you want to get in trouble.
Right.
And now they might not understand the notice of proposed construction process through the FAA, but again, Craig or I both know that process. We could guide them to that.
That's all well put, Bill. So, I mean, they need to hire themselves their own engineer, and they need to come up with a plan with their engineer that keeps the reconfiguration outside of current and future protected areas, which their engineer or a surveyor they retain should be able to delineate for them on the ground. And then they need to come back to us with their plan and let us see that they've covered all the bases with the necessary permits. And that's where review for the airport might come into play.
Yes.
And so what I'll do in my letter is tell them if they're agreeable to this resolution of the safety hazard, then we'll work immediately with them on this long-term solution and solicit from them what information they really think they need from us to move forward with their own reconfiguration plan. And try to get an idea of that before we commit to spend time on some kind of a working session, which I don't know that we really have that much to
Right,
say. Yeah, to offer.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving on.
Why would the firm spend a nickel toward reconfiguring their track until they know what their rent's gonna be?
That's a hypothetical, I don't know. But we're
question.
we're just, well, they actually said in this, one of the emails
They're okay with
that they were okay with whatever the fair market value comes out to be.
They did say that.
Well, yes and no, but here's the answer. It's funny, you have trouble
That's the
making
answers we
decisions.
get from them, yes and no.
Yes or no? In my, this is a safety issue. It's a safety issue.
For us, yeah.
Okay, for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah,
So once we get that in compliance, watch this, we can go to the next step. The FAA says we're not talking about that till you come in compliance.
that's right.
Once we
That's
do
why, yeah,
that,
it's done, yeah.
are you with me? Now the ball keeps moving. And
But that's what we've said all along, we have to do it instead.
All right. Thank you all who were involved. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you for the guidance.
thank you, sir.
Get a letter out tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Kuhn has some information on healthcare plans. I've been talking with, well, I'll just let Craig give us the history on what he's been doing. He has shared with us previously some other plans he had looked at. And finally, we have one, as he's been working with the city, I believe, Craig, if I'm correct on that. So in your packet, you had been provided a copy of some of the literature. You should have gotten that. And
And the premium costs and all that.
yeah, the premium cost. Now, we're talking about 2 employees, Craig, right? We're talking about you and Robbie for this coverage?
For now. Yeah.
Yeah, for now. But at least we would have a contact rather than going through some other agency, a middleman, if you will, to obtain it. And thanks to Craig, I mean, he's made some phone calls and contacted people that Charlie was helpful with the Bailey Group, telling us about the Bailey Group, and then some other communication he had, he was able to get directly to an individual that provided this information to us. So, so what are we looking at total per month, Craig, or an estimate total with 2 employees?
I just said 1,000 a month per person. It'll be a little bit more than that, but if you add a third guy that's younger, you're back to 1,000.
Want to give you all a break.
Isn't it,
Shut that off.
on this, isn't it based on this
Thank you,
age?
Todd.
Let me take care of that. Yeah.
Isn't it based on the age back here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So at 55, I mean, it's not gonna be 1,000, it's $1,275 a month. I think Robbie's 55.
I think Robbie is more like 55-ish.
So what would you, I mean, are you shy about your age, or is that
Well, I'm not
sensitive?
saying it on you.
Here, I'll show him.
Oh, okay.
He's under 1,000. I'll put it that way. How about that? Yeah, as a young guy, he's under 1,000.
So for roughly $2,000 or $2,100 a month, we could do both those employees? And that is a
yes.
good policy. I wish I could get one that good, but you pay for it.
So with all the information that has been gathered on this, may I make a motion that we amend our budget to account for 1,000 per person a month to
Well, that's not going to cover it.
provide health coverage?
I think you got to
You
do,
got to get more.
I
Why
think
don't
you
you
got-
say 2,500 a month?
Yeah.
Just,
For the two,
2,500?
yeah, that's what you'd need roughly.
Okay then,
just to be safe.
2,500 a month per person.
I'll second.
No, no,
Not per person.
for the,
no,
for the,
for two individuals per month.
For health insurance for the employees.
12 per person. That's what he was just saying.
that's good. But however you want to word it.
It's not gonna be that.
It'll be 2,500 for insurance for the current employees per month. Total.
If they get a new employee, then we have to.
So, it's okay, yeah, 2,500 a month
One of,
for health coverage.
Okay.
one of the things that we need to attract qualified people
And long-term,
is
Benefits,
benefits.
yeah.
And we offer vacation, we offer sick leave now, but that's it.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe that's something too you could reconsider is the sick leave. It's pretty generous, and I think that was probably done on purpose.
it actually replicated the city. That's where it all came from originally.
2 weeks of actual sick time a year is,
Sick time, yeah, that's why we went to,
what do you get a year? 4 days.
we went to personal leave for that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Clay Electric did the same thing, and maybe that's something when we come to our budget time of the year, that we look at that, because Clay Electric did the same thing. They eliminated sick leave and vacation. It's all personal leave.
And it was an incentive for those people that would play hooky and, they were getting extra time. So once it became personal leave, then they used it more sparingly. Come in with the flu or bubonic plague and work, and
That's what we want.
I'll second his motion.
okay.
All right, any other questions about the healthcare coverage? All in favor?
Does that include the ability to actually buy it? Was all that?
No, I think we need another motion for that.
Okay.
Do this one first.
Okay, this motion is to
This is a budget amendment essentially.
amend
Budget
our
amendment,
budget
right.
Yeah.
to account for healthcare. So we have a motion by David Delgenay, second by Scott Fryer. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Okay, I will make a motion that we allow Mr. Craig Kuhn to purchase health insurance for himself and Robbie McGee from Florida Blue. Is the plan called Blue Care All Copay 14253?
That I don't know. It's the one I circled in,
Yeah, this is Blue Care HMO.
Yeah, Blue Care HMO.
As needed.
Is that called Blue Choice? Is that?
Blue Care.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it says Blue Care HMO.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any questions about having airport manager purchase those policies? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign, motion carries. All right, Jeremy, you want to give us a quick update on the FAC fly-in?
Only if you guys still want it, because it's been a long night. I'm happy to do it, but I don't want to make everybody suffer if they would rather just me do it next time or something. Up to you.
Okay,
I'd like to hear it.
Okay.
I mean, what time is it?
7:48.
Reader's Digest.
10 minutes
Yeah.
on video there.
So,
You got 10 minutes.
So we got there, it was a 2-day fly-in, started on Tuesday. The first thing we did is a legislative 101 at the Challenger Learning Center in Tallahassee. Talked, they kind of educated us on how the Florida Airport Council educates the legislators and essentially lobbies to them. There was probably about 50, 60 people in the grouping. I thought it was going to be more like airport managers, but actually the majority ended up being kind of like Bill Prang, kind of engineers, airport engineers and that kind of thing. We're advocating for growth and development of the different airports. We had a policy meeting that evening, and then the next day we went to the Capitol and started meeting with the different representatives. I met with all 3 of our concerned representatives, Chuck Brannon, I didn't actually meet with Senator Bradley, but met with her aide, and then also,
Judson.
Judson Sapp.
So,
So the good news from, primarily from Jason Carter, who's the aide for Chuck Brannon, was that he thought that our request for the turn lanes on State Route 100 was going to make it into the appropriation.
That'd be great.
So that was positive. Now, obviously, it has to get voted, so that's another thing that I think Charlie is following up on as he's getting to Tallahassee on. So meeting with all three of those folks to be able to kind of explain to them the importance of that. And then the other project, obviously, that we're concerned about is the water extension for this water and sewage here, recognizing from everybody that that's probably not going to happen. Best we could probably hope for is do it in stages where we kind of, get or design money first and then move on with different stages through that. So I thought that was useful information for those guys to pass on. Then we had a lunch with the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Mr. Perdue, and let me find my notes for that. He was very interesting, very intent on supporting airports. He said right now they have their biggest five-year work program, which is $1.3 billion over 5 years. So he was positive about that. He gave us his priorities. The first one is workforce development, developing the Florida Transportation Academy and curriculum from the high school all the way to the university level to earn certificates for aviation management, aviation flying and maintenance with guaranteed jobs thereafter. And he says we have a significant need for mechanics and transportation engineers in the state. The second priority was aviation safety. Third was infrastructure, which had to do primarily with maintenance and preservation of existing facilities. So the idea that you're going to be building stuff with the budgets the way he sees it happening is not so much. It's going to be about maintaining the facilities and infrastructure that we have. And then the fourth one is emerging technologies, advanced air mobility. Are you guys tracking what that topic is about? And then also public digital infrastructure, connected automatic vehicle movement. And this one lady gave me, she was more of a lobbyist who kind of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with these vertiport moves that they're looking at doing. And eventually, I guess some of the airlines have already started buying these kind of remote vehicles that will potentially be moving passengers or at least cargo in the near future. Secretary Perdue talked about Senator Collins introducing a bill that would include situation and surface awareness for the future of vertiports and electrical vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. So that was kind of my notes from the DOT Secretary. After that, we went to the Capitol, got Senator Albritton to speak to us. He's from Wauchula, Hardy County. He talked about, it wasn't really structured. He kind of talked about a lot of different things. The PFAS, PFOA challenge, you guys heard about, those forever chemicals that if they uncover in a place it could be a lot of money to mitigate those things. A lot of airports are dealing with that as they do some construction and they have to do dirt sampling. They find out that the retardants that fire departments and stuff have been using have left these forever chemicals, and now they've got these huge mitigation concerns, as well as potentially getting sued if someone came down with cancer or something. Now the airport gets sued for having these things. So one of the big things in legislation was trying to get exemptions from these PFAS requirements for airports all over the state so that they don't get sued for that kind of stuff. Advanced air mobility, he also talked about trying to get additional appropriations for that. He said the COVID money from the Biden era is drying up, which means as the president of the Senate, he sees the $127 billion total budget of the state will be decreasing by about $1 billion a year for the next 7 years. So that probably has an impact on what we could expect to see as grants from the DOT. So that was kind of the big notes from Senator Albritton. Then we went to more committee and office meetings. What we did is kind of split up into different groups of 7 or 8 people and went to the different key heads of the different committees and talked to them, presented essentially the Florida Airports Council priorities. And those were kind of the things that I just talked about in terms of making sure that they had ideas on supporting advanced air mobility, getting the funding for the infrastructure, and then making sure we don't get caught with the PFAS, PFOA liabilities. And then there's a legislative reception at the end of it, which was pretty interesting. One thing that I thought, and I'll bring this up real briefly, but mainly just because I'm ignorant and I need to learn more about this, but one of the engineers I talked to also happens to be a board member on a airport similar to ours up in Youngstown, Ohio. And he lives in Jacksonville now, but he actually goes back to just do his airport authority duties up there. And one thing that they started doing, because they are a neighbor to Bowling Green State University at the airport that they're right across the street. About, I don't know, 15 years ago, they started an aviation program at the airport and linked up with the Bowling Green State University. And started getting students from their ROTC program that wanted to get into aviation and came across the airport, and the airport said, yeah, we'll start a little aviation thing. And so they had a little 2-airplane aviation training facility. Well, what they did is they ended up handing that thing off about 10 years ago to a commercial aviation training company. I can't remember what the name of it is, something like, Blue Dog Aviation or something like that. And this aviation, once it became a civilian company that became responsible for the training of these Bowling Green State University students, has continued to grow to the point where they are now building hangars at their airport in support of this Education and Training Institute. And they have grown from like a 2-airplane outfit to a 30-airplane.
Oh, my goodness.
Training facility.
Oh, my goodness.
And the airport authority loved it because they have no, they handed this thing off. They basically approved the contract for this aviation center. I started thinking, well, what's going on with the University of Florida Air Force ROTC unit there? Where do they get their training? I think, and is that something we might be interested in if we want to look at great aeronautical aviation, aeronautical tenants?
Right.
We start setting up some type of aeronautical program. University of Florida comes up here, and they're out of the Gainesville, regional airport, madness. And obviously, as a guy from Embry-Riddle who knows a lot about that, I thought that there might be a source of potential income as well as increase in aviation interest in our area if we were to look at something like that. So I throw that out there just to kind of chew on it maybe a little bit. I can always go out and talk to the Air Force ROTC instructor or the commander at the DET there. My daughter was in that DET 5 years ago, so I could go out there and talk to them and see if that was something that they might be interested in. And if you guys thought it was a good thing, then
Maybe have
we
a
could talk about
workshop on it
some more.
or something, yeah.
Yeah, see if they might be interested in kind of building into the Keystone Heights, that aviation.
Partnership
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, education.
So this is awesome, but Dan Lewandowski, okay, works for me for Embry-Riddle. They got a $140,000 grant for their kids that takes our courses. And Keystone is a grant.
Grant and his
that
other instructor are
They
giving him,
pay and Grant does the flight lessons for
That's
them.
the school right here?
Distinguished flyers.
right here, I mean.
No,
it's
that's the College of Missionary Aviation.
They get a Cherokee and a Cessna, they're giving instruction, and the kids come every week. And they train them, I think, till the money runs out.
So to me, the cool thing was the idea that this thing grows and the airport isn't responsible for it, and it's a civilian organization that takes the risks and, gains the benefit from it, but.
I like the concept.
So
Yeah.
I think
that's
your
something you guys
is
can
about to run
chew
out.
on a
I don't
little
know
bit
if
and let me
you're gonna
know
start
if
another
we can work
session,
on it.
but-
So that was kind of the big picture recap of what happened at the.
Sounds productive, very
It was
informative too.
interesting, learned a lot.
I knew a couple of years ago, the state was already implementing the VTOL process and how they're going to route aircraft, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, I have two things real quick. Just a reminder, the Centennial Spring Fling event will be held here at the airport Saturday, March 29th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And the aerobatic contest is going on at the same time.
The
Say
Snowbird,
it again, 10 Mark?
March 29th, Saturday, 29th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Snowbird aerobatic competition will also be going on. In fact, it will start on Wednesday, Wednesday the 26th, and will
think
go
Hector
through the
told me.
29th.
Sometimes they get here early.
Yeah, they
might
may,
be here
but
Monday.
that's the official from their,
Right. I'm gonna be putting
Publications.
it on Facebook, so.
and so just keep that in mind. It's all being done through the Heritage Commission and through the Friends of Keystone. They're taking care of all of the planning and also. The last thing, APRs, we've already mentioned, those have been submitted. Craig did a great job in getting those together.
They had them.
Even with the change, because they came back to us and said, hey, you need to break this thing down into phases, so it's a little
For the water
more,
one or for the,
both,
oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
So actually, the decel lanes, turn lanes, and crossroad
Okay.